What type of dwelling can endure a location where the very air seems intent on eliminating heat at -40 degrees Fahrenheit? The Arctic isn't merely cold. It transforms into an active force. In this place, heat does not diminish gradually. It is seized, stripped, and removed in moments via a mechanism few consider: forced convection. As 40 to 50 miles per hour winds rush over barren tundra with no obstacles, they do more than glide across the surface. They tear off the delicate molecular coating of warmth that adheres to everything. Uncovered flesh freezes within minutes. Breath turns to ice in the air. Even substances start to act differently, turning brittle, stiff, and harsh. Yet the core issue is this: the surroundings are not merely cold, they act as an endless heat sink. Any heat that enters the system is instantly absorbed and scattered across the expansive, energy-demanding emptiness of the Arctic atmosphere. Thus, the true challenge is not about staying warm, it's about preventing any heat loss whatsoever. Throughout most of human history, survival starts with fire. Fire delivers warmth, illumination, and defense, a manageable source of energy. However, in the high Arctic, fire by itself does not suffice. There are no trees, no woodlands, no lumber for construction, no fuel for ongoing burning. Even if a fire is kindled from animal fat or oil, it generates only a minor, concentrated source of heat. Given the magnitude of heat loss in the Arctic, such a fire is nearly inconsequential unless other factors shift. That's where conventional architecture utterly fails. A dwelling erected above ground with slim walls and open corners. It turns into a disadvantage. It loses heat through every joint. The wind generates pressure variations that actually extract warmth via tiny crevices in such conditions. A home cannot merely hold heat. It must capture, retain, and shield it from being stolen. The answer did not arise from constructing superior walls. It came from altering the house's location. Rather than battling the Arctic from the surface, early Arctic engineers, especially the Thule culture, made a bold choice. They placed their dwellings inside the ground by lowering structures about 3 feet beneath the surface. They left the most hazardous zone of the environment, the turbulent, wind-driven air, and moved into something much more stable, underground. Conditions change. Wind vanishes, temperature shifts, reduce drastically, and heat loss becomes consistent. This was not merely a refuge, it was a transition from climate to earth science. It seems paradoxical, yet below the Arctic terrain exists one of the most precious assets: temperature constancy. The permafrost ground, solidly frozen for millennia, holds a fairly steady temperature. It remains around 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius, under the active top layer. Even when the overhead air drops to -40 degrees Fahrenheit or more overnight, the Earth opposes that fluctuation. Its vast mass preserves its temperature, rendering it exceptional, a heat reservoir. By nestling a building inside this mass, the indoor environment starts to stabilize. It balances not with the lethal outdoor air, but with the significantly milder ground temperature, even in the absence of a powerful heating system. Indoor temperatures can stay near or above freezing, and with just a little extra warmth they can spike sharply. Existence no longer means combating the cold. It means cooperating with the Earth's accumulated energy. In the Arctic, wind is more than discomfort. It becomes damaging when fast-moving air strikes a building. It forms pressure areas. Elevated pressure on the side facing the wind, reduced pressure on the opposite side. This contrast creates a vacuum, drawing heated air out through the tiniest openings. A conventional building turns into a leaky system. The Thule approach was clever when facing relentless assault. Instead of fighting the wind, evade it by sinking the building into the earth and forming the roof like a dome. Air moves gently across the exterior, with no abrupt angles to snag the breeze or upright surfaces to take impact. This design cuts wind exposure by as much as 85%, causing very little swirl and almost no heat loss due to air pressure. The dwelling no longer stands as a separate element. It merges with the surroundings. However, digging into the earth addressed just one aspect of the challenge. The issue of building a frame without wood remained. How can a ceiling be constructed that bears snow, avoids falling in, and stretches across a room? A solution emerged from the ocean: One bowhead whale yields many tons of useful matter. Its skeleton, particularly the huge arched jawbones, provided an unusual asset in the Arctic, naturally occurring architectural shapes. These jawbones, frequently exceeding 15 feet in length, served as main load-bearing elements. Placed in a ring or cone layout, they created a dome among the most robust forms in construction. In contrast to straight beams that undergo bending forces, curved members transform stress into compression, spreading load uniformly. The whale's bones thus formed a supportive skeleton that could hold substantial snow weight and maintain its shape. The sea turned into building material. A framework by itself doesn't keep warmth. It's the covering placed over the bone structure that turns the home into a heat-regulating setup. Heavy animal skins were pulled tight to form a barrier against wind. Then, a compact layer of Arctic soil, sometimes as much as 3 feet thick, was added on top. That sod wasn't mere earth. It consisted of a living web of moss, roots, and organic matter, placed with the roots pointing inward. An amazing phenomenon occurred. The plants stayed alive and kept growing, lacing together and strengthening the building. The dwelling acquired a self-mending, covering a natural shield that mended minor fissures and blocked wind entry. It was no longer a fixed refuge. It turned into a dynamic entity. Within this weatherproofed ground-set construction, a modest heat generator grew highly effective. A lone lamp fueled by seal or whale oil could boost indoor warmth significantly. The reason? The setup stops shedding warmth quickly. The heavy sod acts as insulation, the ground stores heat, and the dome form lessens wind disruption. Thus, a regulated space emerges where warmth builds up rather than leaks away. The outcome is remarkable, a temperature gap of more than 100 degrees Fahrenheit between interior and exterior. This is achieved not by generating power, but by conserving it. Yet this almost flawless arrangement brought a fresh hazard. Because the building was sealed so tightly, air movement nearly ceased, and lacking air exchange, dangerous substances accumulate: carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, dampness. The very approach that holds in warmth can asphyxiate those inside. Therefore, the problem shifts once more. The focus is no longer on rigid walls, ceilings, or insulation. It centers on airflows. Ventilation must circulate gently and exactly without losing warmth. Air outlets, passageways at the entrance, and fine air circulation paths were added to manage this equilibrium. Excessive air movement drains heat. Insufficient makes survival unsustainable. At this point, staying alive turns into technical design, and it reaches its most sensitive stage. What results is much more than a simple refuge. It is a self-contained heat regulation circuit. The ground moderates temperature. The building reduces contact. The insulation holds warmth. The contour deflects breezes. The air exchange supports life. No petroleum, no outside electricity, no surplus resources, only form, weight, and insight. In a spot where making it through appears unthinkable, this system doesn't battle the surroundings. It harmonizes with them. A subtle reality lies concealed within everything here. The most sophisticated technology isn't necessarily the one that uses the most power, but rather the one that knows precisely how minimal its requirements are. These constructions weren't designed to overcome the Arctic. They were designed to be part of it. And perhaps that's the insight we've overlooked. Not the ability to control our surroundings, but the ability to interpret them, adjust to them, and endure by following their principles. If this type of overlooked design resonates with you, the type formed by need, not abundance, then you're already on the journey we examine here. Shadows of Valhalla isn't only concerning the past, it's about uncovering the wisdom concealed within it.